That's better. Great. I sound too loud. I just want to welcome everybody here today. I think this is an important issue for all of us. And we're grateful for everybody that has came. We're grateful to have NAGA here, the Native American Guardians Association. And I'm going to turn the time over to them and let them do their presentation. There will be time for questions and answers, or a question and answer period and everything. So we just want everyone to be respectful, kind, and hopefully have a good informational night. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. It's good to see so many here tonight. We're really honored to be here. We're all from the Native American Guardians Association from all over the country, which I'll introduce you to in a minute. I really want to thank our host, Tracy, and her husband for graciously taking care of us while we're here and showing around your town. I want to tell you I love the culture of your town. We've gone around and I don't see a McDonald's, I don't see a Hardee's, and I think that is just really, really neat that you have your own character and don't have to have all these big chain stores. So I just wanted to mention that, and people have been so friendly and so good to us wherever we went, and there certainly is a different cultures in your town, which I really like that. So anyway, we'll start our presentation. I always prepare mine on paper. My son says, Mom, he says, you need to write it down because if you start talking, pretty soon you're going to be giving away your recipes. You forget where you're at, you'll stay focused. So I always write mine. But anyway, I want to say aho, that's greetings in Dakota Sioux. My name is Good Star Woman. My name is also Eunice Davidson. I am from the Great Sioux Nation from North Dakota. I am an enrolled member of the Spirit Lake Reservation, and I'm also a full-blood Dakota Sioux. I already thanked Tracy and them. But anyway, our NAGA team, who are all here today, we all have a unique message and a different perspective. Oh yeah, I'm going to mention. But anyway, in our perspective from all over this great nation, from Indian country, we do not come here to make trouble, but we're here in peace. To tell you, we're not here to tell you what to do. All we want to do is give you suggestions and let you know what we faced as we traveled around the nation. Okay, our organization, we support names and images. Our motto is to educate, not eradicate. Our identities and our heritage. But first I would like to introduce our panel here tonight. And like I said, I'm from Sioux from North Dakota. We have Mark One Wolf, he's part Cherokee, he's from Connecticut, or Apache, I'm sorry, he's part Apache, and he's from Connecticut. We have Breelyn Mertens, she's part Shawnee, and she's from Illinois. We have Jonathan and his wife Crystal Tissot, and they're from Odessa, but they do come from Arizona, and they are Navajos. So I wanted to introduce Jonathan is an enrolled member with the Assiniboine tribe out of Fort Peck, Montana. So we do have a variety of Native Americans around this country that belong to the organization. And when we're invited to communities, we usually take maybe about 4 or 5 of us to go around and tell our story to everybody and talk to you. So anyway, with that being said, I have to ask, so why am I here today? So anyway, when I wrote this out, I put in here, the answer is too long and complicated to address fully. But I will do my best to help you understand the importance of the Teton Redskin name and image and its continued survival. First off, I think there is one thing that brings so many of us together regardless of our nationality. It is our pride and our traditions for our communities. Mine is the pride I have always had about communities like yours who want to use our Indian name and images, so we never forget who the American Indian is. Secondly, what I've seen and read about non-Native communities who use our name and image has always been done with respect. Although in the past I have seen some who used a mascot in some sort of way which I do not agree with. Since this issue, I've read and seen how many people are respecting the American Indians and getting rid of their mascots. Although you hear from the ones against anyone using our name and images referred to as a mascot, and the reason for that is because it sounds more offensive. So let's be clear, do you have a mascot? I've say no, you have an image, symbol, or an emblem. You hear all kinds of reasons why the Redskin name must go, but those reasons have little, if any, facts to back them up. In some cases, they are more distortions of true facts, but in most claims are just made up accounts to tug at your emotions with absolutely no facts. When confronted with the truth, these people resort to you don't understand, finally resorting to name-calling like you're racist or bigoted. Because these agitators can't argue with or accept the truth, I'm sure these are familiar terms they have tried to paint you with. In my mind, sometimes they are just plain evil. The name changers make it sound as if they speak for all Indians. That is far from the truth. The one thing I know for sure, the changers don't agree with our stance and can't attack our message, so they resort to our personal attacks on anyone who doesn't agree with them. It's embarrassing to many of us American Indians when strangers come into your community and call you racist simply because you use an Indian name and image. I think to myself whenever I hear this happening, who goes into a stranger's home who they don't know nothing about and call them a racist and puts people down? I'm sure you've heard all of the polls done in the recent years, such as the 2000 with Sports Illustrated. The results were 90% of Native Americans don't have a problem using Indian names and images, including the Redskins name. As in the 2004 Annenberg poll that came up with the same results, the 2013 and 14 USA ESPN also came up with the polls that gave the same results of 90% of American Indians support keeping our names and images in sports. The latest poll done in 2016 came out with 91% of American Indians have no problem with athletics and sports using our names as images, especially the Redskin name. You won't hear the changers say anything about these polls. I've seen where they are given the results that 99% of Native Americans don't support using our name and images, but I've never seen any results from polls taken to prove that. A majority of school board personnel and other so-called teachers or professors have taken upon themselves to call NAGA leadership frauds and fake Indians. They cherry-pick Indian voices to listen to. In 2015, I was forced to travel 1,000 miles to Pawpaw, Michigan. A white female school board member claimed I was not Indian and only a foster child, trying to sell a book after I supplied information to their community. This person spread these lies through the community as they try to erase the Pawpaw Redskin name and image from the school. Well, as she sat in the audience, I gave my 20-minute presentation to the community. I asked her and anyone else that had a problem with me or my heritage to examine my family tree, which I brought dating back to 1745 with legal federal documents proving every word I claimed. I then turned my attention to the distortions and outright lies about my tribe's 2009 tribal-wide vote on the Fighting Sioux name and image. The vote was being represented as less than 1% of eligible voters by the school board members. Truth is, only those living on the reservation are eligible to vote in tribal elections. As I live off the reservation, I was not allowed to vote, but I was very much part of the group that forced the issue on the ballot against our tribal chair's wishes. Of the 3,500 people living on the reservation, roughly 1,200 are eligible voters. Of that number, over 1,100 or 90% voted strictly because of the issue. The vote tally amounted to just over 67% in support of keeping the name and image at the University of North Dakota. This vote coming days after professors from the University of North Dakota and the week leading up to the vote put on numerous presentations throughout our reservation, telling tribal members to vote against the name and image using the same propaganda that is used here against your school. What is even worse, one of those professors later called me a liar to my face, saying she never did such a thing. Totally disregarding she was on local TV news and had an article printed in the local newspaper during these presentations, yet dared to tell me to believe my eyes and forget what I knew to be true. These people have no shame. As these people tell you they care about Indians, don't believe it. As my tribe fought the North Dakota higher education system in district court and North Dakota Supreme Court, the education system stated in court in no uncertain terms, the Sioux have no rights or standing on this issue. You need to know a mere 3 weeks after our historic vote, which they had been calling for, the higher education system in the state voted to retire the name and image. To them, we were like one of their lawyers put it. He said we were like just dirty laundry sitting in the corner, which is really sad to hear somebody say that. And then from the education field. But it gets worse. We Sioux, along with some Chippewa members, testified to the state legislators and got a law passed in 2011, keeping the name and image in place only to have the state education system go behind closed doors and back rooms where they had the law repealed. 9 months later, there was no Indian involvement in getting the law repealed, just the education system. We then took the NCAA to federal court late in 2011, where the NCAA stated in no uncertain terms, Indians have no standing, forcing us to go to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. Who agreed Indians have no standing. So when you hear the opposition say we care about Indians, do not believe it. If they say we are listening to the American Indians, do not believe it. But now I want to turn your attention to one of your school board members who wrote an op-ed that I read on social media. And we've seen this play out in communities across the nation, where board members, usually newcomers to the community, try forcing their values down the throats of unsuspecting communities by creating turmoil where there was none before. Once lighting the flame, they then stand back, fanning the flames. She has every right to her opinion. But if Idaho is like North Dakota, there are ethical standards that prevent public service personnel from lobbying for or against issues such as here in the Redskins School District. This is really a community decision, but we've seen school boards tell the community to sit down and be quiet as they decide issues totally on their private personal beliefs. Truth, honesty, and fairness have absolutely no place in their personal campaign. The opposition relies on division, pitting one group against the other. We have seen where they have somewhat been successful in this tactic, but at NAGA we know it is based on lies. NAGA is made up of conservative and liberals, by Democrats and Republicans, by men and women, by Indians and non-Indians. We do not discriminate. We ask you not to allow these people to divide you with a false issue. Do not allow them to reduce you into name-calling on Facebook or Twitter or at rallies. The vast majority of your community agrees that what has taken place is wrong, it's disgusting, deceitful, and must be stopped. Stand united against tyranny and falsehood. As your local newspaper, the Teton Valley News Online apparently practices censorship. This too is a practice we are familiar with. As I posted positive information on their Facebook page, it was taken down within hours and I was blocked from posting anymore. The information I posted could in no way be determined as negative or derogatory, but just informative. They clearly have a problem with the truth, but we have been dealing with this tactic since 2008 and sadly we've grown used to it. As we began our campaign in North Dakota, the press had all but a complete blackout on positive coverage. What I do see as an alternative is social media. We created a Facebook page and named it The Sioux Were Silenced. We gained a lot of traffic, and it was a place where we could post our information. And so far, it has been a good outlet for the Sioux in North Dakota. My story is typical of thousands of American Indians, but goes to the heart of the issue. We have a glorious past that gives pride to the majority of American Indians. Just as our ancestors adjusted to the changing a world they lived in, we too have adjusted to change. But unlike Europeans or Asians or Africans, we have no other homeland to return to find our history or heritage once it's lost. This is what is at stake here. We do not support mascots, for they are clowns dressed up to fire up a crowd, but logos, icons, or symbols are to preserve and identify history and honorable symbols meant to give pride. We are the smallest minority in this land, which once belonged entirely to the American Indian. I do not say this to whine or look for sympathy, but it is just a fact. The real issue here is, where do we go from here, or are we to fade away into oblivion, as these people want? It matters little how we got to this place. The only reason to focus exclusively on the past is either to warp history, for vengeance, or for some sort of personal benefit. This is what is taking place in not just your community, but throughout the nation today. There is a real attempt to erase the American Indian. The movement begins with the higher education system as pushed by them. They are busy working to warp history and create division like the Nazis did to the German children in the 1930s. But I want you to know the Redskin is a good name and was used from our own ancestors when they were referring to themselves, and others who wanted to see Redskins and symbols used in sports. Most see it as honor and pride. Let me give you a little history about the Redskin name. In the year 1822, Big Elk speaks to President James Monroe in the White House. He states this: "The Great Spirit made my skin red, and he made us to live as we do now. And I believe what the Great Spirit placed us on this earth, he consulted our happiness." This was translated from the Omaha. In another speech by Black Thunder, July 1815, as he spoke to William Clark and other peace commissioners at the Portage de Sioux, Missouri Territory, he states, "My father, restrain your feelings and hear calmly what I shall say. I shall say it to you plainly. I shall not speak for fear and trembling. I feel no fear. I have no cause to fear. I have never injured you, and innocence can feel no fear. I turn to all my redskins and whiteskins and challenge an accusation against me." So when I talk about that, our ancestors used it to distinguish our skin color of who we were. So if they didn't say anything wrong with it, why should we? I respect them. In 1933, Lone Star Dietz himself was a coach for the Boston Braves and an Ogallala Sioux. He mentioned to the owner of the team he would like to see the Braves change to the Redskins. Dietz said, "We have to have a powerful name and something with dignity." That's how the Washington NFL team became the Washington Redskins, with their name. Blackie Wetzel is another American Indian who was the first tribal chairman of the Blackfeet tribe out in Montana. He asked the Washington Redskins if his people came up with a suitable logo for the team instead of the R the team used, would they accept their gift? And we all know the well-known logo for the NFL Redskin team. Blackie Wetzel was also the president of the National Congress of American Indians at one time and was respected and talked with many national figures such as President John Kennedy. These are just a few examples of American Indians who were involved with using the term Redskin. If you go to our website, we have many examples of Indian country schools who use their own names and images. If they caused so much damage or were derogatory, why would American Indians use them themselves? I've asked myself, why is this happening? What I've witnessed is people mostly coming from the education field and are manufacturing and teaching prejudice or racism to our children. Some Indians use our history as vengeance to create division and hate towards non-natives. I was raised to look at all people as human beings with a good heart. But through my travels, I have met and talked to many people with a good heart, and in some I would sense the anger, the resentment, or even hate from them. In this world, there will always be those who are in a negative mindset. There is nothing we can do about them, but all we can do is follow our own convictions. So anyway, that is just something I wanted to let you know. It's very important to know that many Native Americans in this country, 90% of us, 91% with the latest poll in 2016, that we do support these. And the polls have been done. My reservation shows that. We voted 67% to save these names and images, but we lost. The Indian is losing any kind of recognition that we've had, and that really makes me sad to see that. But it makes me feel good to see so many people, non-natives, who do stand with us. That makes me feel really good. It gives me a good feeling in my heart to see that. So I really commend your community for standing up and fighting for what you believe and your traditions. To lose that is going to lose your community also. So I just want you to know that I stand with you, and I'm totally say, go Redskins.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank you all for your wonderful hospitality that we've experienced here since we've been in this town. My name is Mark One Wolf. I'm a Chihinende, which means the red paint people of the Apache. That's also known as the Chiricahua Apache. It's probably the most common term, but we call ourselves the Chihinende. I've grown up knowing my heritage and knowing where I come from. I grew up in Washington, D.C., of all places. And of course, we have a football team there, the Washington Redskins, and I am a fan of the Washington Redskins. I grew up knowing the history of the team. I used to check out a book in my elementary school, the history of the Washington Redskins. And in that book, I found that there were 6 Native Americans on that team in the earlier years. This was before they universally integrated white players and non-white players. So the Washington Redskins were the first to integrate Native Americans on their team, which, really resonates with me as a Native American who grew up far away from my ancestral homeland. So in the Washington, D.C. area, the Native Americans there are very sparse. Our communities aren't, you could be the only one Native American person in the school of, 1,000 kids or whatever. But we did gather with the Piscataway natives and the Nanticokes and many of the Virginia tribes that we gathered over the years and things. And we also celebrated the Washington Redskins victories together as Native Americans. So this is how I've been raised and known the term Redskin. I've never heard it used as a derogatory term by anyone else, nor have I ever used it as a derogatory term, or even thought to use it as a derogatory term. It'd be hard pressed for someone to offend me by calling me a Redskin. A word has so much pride to me. I'm not here to debate whether or not the word is offensive to some people. We can acknowledge that. We acknowledge our brothers and sisters on the other side of the debate. And I don't hold any hard feelings against them because they don't agree with my interpretation or my understanding of the word. And I have many friends who we can still be friends, and we can powwow and and enjoy fry bread together and everything like that, while still disagreeing that what we feel about the Redskins. I think that's an important thing that's been lost over the years, in recent years especially. You have to be either for or against. You can't just agree to disagree anymore. You can't be friends with this person because they're a Redskins fan or things like that. I've seen communities torn apart this way in my travels with before I joined NAGA, as well as recently with NAGA. So what I think is a atrocity really is for people to judge anyone. We as Native Americans hate to be judged by a stereotype or prejudged by anything. And I'm pretty sure that anybody else we can all probably raise our hands and agree, nobody likes to be judged or prejudged. So for someone to come into your community not knowing who you are and just label you a racist, I think that's wrong. I think that they are entitled to their opinions, for sure, in terms of what the word means to them. But one thing I've always learned, and I think this is part of the great laws of peace of the Iroquois Confederacy, which our Constitution was frameworked by, and that was that in any debate, you always hear all sides. You hear all sides. You listen and then be heard. And that's what I have done over the years. My first instinct, when I heard the debate going on way back in the 90s, was that who in the world could be offended by Redskins? Did I jump up and start pointing fingers and judging people? No. I reached out to my friends. I reached out to people who I didn't know. And even recently in 2014, I reached out to people. I want to understand what your feelings are. I want to understand how you feel. And one thing that I always do with with the communities that have been attacked by and called racist and everything like that, I don't just automatically jump on and say, okay, I support you. I want to reach out to you, understand who you are too. I want to understand what that word means to you. Because one thing that we can universally agree, whether you're on this side or on that side, we can universally agree that context and intent are infinitely paramount and important in any discussion we have. I can lay out any word, and it all depends on the context I use it in that deems whether it's offensive or not, or should be offensive or not. Even the feared N-word, which the Redskin name has been associated with. And I hate that connection because there are certain things that I see the Redskins that separates it from any other racial slur. And number one is that it was a self-identifier, first and foremost. It was a word from the Native American people, the Algonquin word that was translated to French and then into English. It was then universally used as a self-identifier, as Eunice mentioned. Also, Chief French Crow, who was also a Sioux, used that word when he was speaking to President Grant. I believe it was President Grant. So can anybody here tell me if the N-word, quote-unquote N-word, has ever been used when a African-American was speaking to the president and referred to themselves as such? I'd love to see that if you all have that information. But in the archives of the Library of Congress, we have transcripts of Native American delegations, intertribal delegations going to Washington, D.C. and referring to themselves as a Redskin. So I take a lot of pride in that word, because if it was good enough for my ancestors, then it's good enough for me. Now, I can acknowledge again that there are some Native Americans who are offended by that. I can also tell you that there are some Native Americans or American Indians who don't like the term Native American and who don't like the term American Indian. Some feel that Native people have been here long before America, so they can't be Native Americans, and that offends them as well. So, like I said, anything that we put out here can be deemed offensive. Being offended or not offended is a personal decision, and I can't tell someone not to be offended. I can only tell them my intent. So if I refer to a friend or someone who I don't know that they don't like the word Native American, if I call them a Native American, they're offended by it, I don't expect them to start, pummeling me or anything. I expect them to inform me and tell me. I mentioned I'm Apache. The word Apache is actually from the Zuni word, meaning the enemy. And there are some Apaches that find that offensive. Again, my ancestors were referred to that. They referred to themselves as such. And if it was good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So I don't quibble over that. I think there are many more issues in our communities that we need to, to concentrate on rather than what people call us. When I was growing up as a kid, American Indian was the quote-unquote acceptable term, and then it morphed into Native American, and nowadays there's Indigenous people and First Nations people, and there's all sorts of things I can't keep up. So, we can't possibly know and understand and anticipate what everybody else is going to be offended by, or we can only be true to ourselves and know that what our intent is. When I came to this community and I spoke with you all last night and been around your town, I've had dinner and I've met people around your town, I think it's a very unfair characterization to call you all racist. You've been nothing but hospitable to us and welcomed us into your homes and shared personal family stories with us. And I see that there is a very heavy and deep connection to Native American history and culture in this town. It formed what we see here. This Native Americans and non-Native Americans formed what I see in front of me here. And that symbol outside that front door and the Redskin name on this school is a symbol of that over 90 years to solidify that. And I'm proud of that. Well, why am I here? Well, I'm not here for myself. I'm here for my future, my children, my children's children. I'm a father of a Native American young man who will be graduating from high school this year. I don't want this word to be tainted and used negatively by ignorant people to then hurt him or hurt my children or hurt my children's children. Racism is hate. Hate does not live in a word. It lives in the hearts of the people who use it hatefully. Words can be used as weapons and things like that. And I don't want to weaponize the word redskin. I want to de-weaponize it if it's even become a hint of it. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think that people on the other side of the story, other side of the aisle, the opposition as we call them, they're in it for the same thing. They're trying to protect their kids. They're trying to protect their future. So I think that a lot of people, and there's always extremists on either side. I'm talking about the good people, my friends who I know. They want to protect their children as well. But we can look back in history. We can look at words like the N-word. I mean, we can all agree that it's probably labeled as the most offensive word in the English language. It has probably the most power in terms of hate whenever it's uttered. People know what I'm talking about. I haven't even spoken the word, but I just use a single letter, and I've spoken that, and everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. We don't want Redskin to become that. Censorship does not necessarily work because even with the F word, we call it the F-bomb or whatever you want to call it. If you want to hurt somebody, you just reach in your pocket, pull that F-bomb out, and you just slap it down on the table. And they use the N-word that way. They use any other racial slur that way. Redskin has not been used that way. Can't be used that way yet. But if your community folds and another community folds, and then it just solidifies it. And I see that, and I'm trying to protect my kids from that. I'm trying to protect them that their word, their ancestors' word, their self-identifier will not be tainted by ignorance. And I think that whether you agree with me or disagree with me in terms of being offended or not offended or whatever, you can agree in that censorship does not help, does not protect our children. But education is the the cure for the disease of ignorance. Education. We educate the kids about where the word comes from. We educate the kids in your school here as well. I mean, I think that every student here should know and understand the history of the word redskin, should know and understand the history of the connection between the Native Americans that were treated to hunt here in these lands, and know that connection with this community and how it's shaped and formed who they are today. I think that should be, top of the list of what they learn. I mean, this is an educational institution, if I'm not mistaken. In the high school, we're supposed to teach. We're not supposed to censor. We're not supposed to tell people, ignore history. I mean, I've never, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but is that what we're teaching kids now, to ignore history? And then to redefine a word, redefine a self-identifier as a racial slur just because some people feel that it is or something. I think we need to eradicate ignorance, and how we do that is by education. And we don't eradicate words and images and things like that. We educate. And that's what NAGA is actually here to do, is try to educate. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're just trying to give you another perspective and an understanding, because I know that you all want to do the right thing. You all want to be on the quote-unquote right side of history. The newsflash, you all are already on the right side of history. The history of this word has always been a self-identifier, a positive and respectful term. And someone between the, 1600s or whatever, when it was first recorded, to now, somebody in between there may have taken that word and used it negatively. We don't want ignorant people to dictate to us intelligent people how we use a word, right? It's just, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. But again, I appreciate the time and opportunity and the lovely hospitality that you all have shown us. And I think it's a crime that you all are labeled as racist just because of this school name, when you are actually honoring and trying to preserve Native American heritage and culture. And you're celebrating your own heritage and culture as it connects with Native America. And I see that. So I appreciate that. And thank you all for standing up and educating yourselves to try to understand both sides of the argument. I really appreciate that.
Wow, to follow that. All right, well, my name is Breland Faye Mertens, and I am a Native American of Shawnee blood. I grew up in the Portage Lakes area near Akron, Ohio, but my family is from West Virginia. I currently live in Champaign, Illinois, very near the heart of the University of Illinois, where we are known as the Fighting Illini. And even today, we fight to keep our name and honorable Native imagery. We're in year 12 since they took ours. They took ours in 2007. This is 2019. We are still fighting. That's how bad it is in Illinois. But we're a Big Ten school with Big Ten problems. This is a high school, but if you want to look to the future and you don't stop it now, look at Illinois and see how torn apart we are. That's how torn apart communities get. I'm going to be talking about the real psychological impact of stripping Native imagery away in a community, as well as deconstructing the basis of the opposition's defense, the Freiburg research, which wrongfully assumes racism where there is none. I have a personal problem with that because I don't like people messing with other people's mental pictures of themselves. It's called gaslighting, when you change history to make it fit your narrative. I'm a suicide survivor, so I feel a little more qualified to speak on this kind of thing when they're talking about how mascots are derogatory to Native Americans growing up. I grew up near the Cleveland Indians my whole life. I'm still a tribe fan. They took our logo, it's whatever. I know, and to point out how diverse Native Americans are, we don't agree on Chief Wahoo. So, and you will be hard-pressed to find two Native Americans that agree all the way down the line on every single thing, because we're all different. No one entity speaks for all of us. That's something to keep in mind. And another thing to keep in mind while I'm talking to you, don't just buy everything I say. Research it yourself. Don't just buy what people are selling. If they come in calling you racist, be like, what? You back that up. So, I did come from a white father and a Native mother, and I also want to talk to you about hate, because some of these other Natives will come in and say, you're racist, and I've heard them say, I can't say that here, forget white people. I've heard some very nasty things, but they only attack white schools with the name Redskins, Indians, Warriors. If it's on a reservation, they leave them alone. They don't touch them. So who's the racist? Because you don't let white people have the word? They're putting the sins of the fathers on the heads of the sons. Now, that's just not right. I mean, biblically or logically, it's just not right. And I'll give you a couple examples out of my own life. Like I said, I came from a white father and a Native mother, and my father was very racist. He referred to me and my mother and my sisters as you people. I thought you people never left a trace. I thought you people always cleaned up after yourselves. I thought you people were quiet every time he was mad. It never had anything to do with mascots or any local high schools or any Indian things. It was his lack of education in grade school and high school that led him to make these leaps, these stereotypical leaps, and just cut us, and poo-poo, our culture and way of stuff until we were just doing it in secret because we just couldn't handle it. It just wasn't fair to us. And there were a couple times he was not kind. I took a couple ER visits, and in the end, he left my mom on her deathbed after 49 years of marriage with the words, "Who gives up?" Don't know why. I don't know why. And then he went after our family land. But I don't hate white people. I've been abused by white people my life. I was called dirty Injun by Catholic nuns, had my desk spilled out on the floor, grabbed by teachers and told I wasn't, good enough. I didn't give a DAMN about school. These things happened through the early 80s. Into the 90s, where it was shameful to be Native American, and we were the only Native American family around there. So when we tried adding more culture, my mom would come in with, stuff that she had hunted, because we grew our own food and hunted for our own food. We were pretty poor where we grew up. The kids would make fun of me. Kids would be like, "Oh, we're that bear. Is that what you're eating for lunch? Or you turtle soup?" It kind of was, but that was kind of our thing, but I make these points to say I don't hate white people, and I would never hoard my culture or hoard a name or hoard an image and say, no, it's mine and you can't have it, and I'm offended that you use it. Culture is something that we give one another. Like, as soon as we got here, people wanted to tell us about their family histories and share your culture with us and tell us where you came from, and show us around. That's sharing culture. And I'll tell you what, it extends beyond the Redskin name at the high school. We went into town, and there's Chief Joe on the menu at Provisions. That's Native imagery. There's a royal wolf that we ate at. That's Native imagery. It was good food. It was good. But it's all permeated throughout your town, into your businesses, all the little nooks and crannies that have that Native influence. There's a buffalo on top. Is it a bank? There's a big buffalo. What is more Native American than hunting buffalo? It's huge and proud and big, and in your town, these are all positive things. So to get back to the Freiburg research, which, by the way, came out in 2005. It has been cited over 1,300 times by the NCIA, by all these big name Native American groups. What? NCIA? NCAI. I'm really not good with acronyms. I'm so sorry. Thank you for correcting me. If I'm wrong, I will freely admit it and correct. but the APA and all these psychological papers and research papers have gone back to this Freiberg report. And first of all, that was 2005. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot has changed since then in the way Native Americans are viewed. She began with a question, and this was the question that the test subjects were given before proceeding with the experiment. Most people know very little about American Indians beyond the mascot images portrayed in newspapers and on television. That was the leading question. Now that no longer holds up. That was 2005. 2004, Facebook had just come around. Facebook was a year old. Twitter hadn't come around. Wikipedia was in its infancy. Instagram, Snapchat. We were so not in the internet age that was actually true. That maybe the public got their public view of Native Americans from mascots in 2005. In 2019, that is no longer true at all. You can get on Google, you can get on our site, there's just a wealth of information. Yeah, YouTube, YouTube's a big one. YouTube was not around, not big in 2005. So to base everything on a 2005 study in the first place and to keep holding on to that 14 years later as a valid study, first of all, is outdated. Second, Freiberg took, and I'm sure you're all familiar with scientific method and random sampling and things like this. These are elementary and hopefully still taught in high school for their science classes. If you're going to take test subjects and ask them questions, you're going to want to take them from the West and the North and the South and the Southwest and the Northeast. And, so you get a good sampling. You get, I can't think of a better term than good sampling and diverse answers. But with this Freiberg report, she took, 2 high schools in Arizona that were on reservations and basically showed them pictures of Chief Wahoo and Disney's Pocahontas and then measured their self-esteem before and after that with that leading question, and then went on, so that's a second fallacy that this represents all Native Americans when it represents this tiny sliver in one state, in one area of Native Americans. And she's saying, these Native Americans speak for the Seminoles. These speak for the Shawnee. They speak for the Cherokee. No, they don't. No, they don't. They can't. So we have that. This research has never been peer reviewed, which is something very big in the scientific community. It's to be peer reviewed. It means you have credibility. It means you've done your research correctly. You've followed scientific method correctly. I can't stress enough how important peer review is. This research has never been peer reviewed. In fact, when it was put out in 2005, it was under the only sitting president of the American Psychological Association that was not a psychologist at the time. Kind of pushed through that. That's kind of, that doesn't sit with me. That I don't like that. So it's just one more thing to look at this research. And let me say again that this research has been cited 1,300 times in the psychological community, saying you're racist because this research says so. This research. Look it up for yourself. Read this research. This research is available online in all its raw data. So you can go through everything. So, sorry, I'm a little confused here. Yeah, there was no smartphones back in 2005. We weren't connected the way we were. In 2005, we weren't connected with each other. There was no Facebook. There was no way to get information from one person to another, so it was just assumed it was racist. So here's the problem beyond the Freiberg report, which, she does make the distinction between mascots and logos, which our detractors nationwide do not. They just stand on the racism part of it, and Freiberg has created racism where there is no racism. She's conjectured that's such a dangerous thing for a scientist, for a woman with a PhD to do, is conjecture. That's misleading. So when people come in and tell you, oh, well, the APA has said, they're talking about the Freiberg report, or Freiberg research. And this is what's really duped the whole country into believing that other people are racist, is because she put out this report. And it was snapped up right away. And you know who snapped it up? The NCAA. The NCAA, and shortly after 2005, what happened? They decreed, with no Native Americans on their board, that Native imagery was hostile and abusive. They told us, and they set this war in motion. They pitted natives against natives, because here we sit, this is a war. This is a war. This happens in Cincinnati, this happens in Maine, this happens in broken communities everywhere. You guys are at the beginning of it, so we caught it early, and we're gonna win. We're gonna win this one. But in other communities, we had people that were so emphatic with the name change, they would want to come busting in the door. They wanted to start fist fights, because that's how emotional this makes people feel when you're called a racist. It's a weaponized word that has no place. It has no place with Redskins. Redskins and racism? No, it's a made-up thing. It's a made-up thing, like cultural appropriation. Like you could steal culture like you can a wallet or a car. Culture is how we share the deepest parts of ourselves. You can't just steal it from somebody. So the problem is that these people come in and emotionally enslave you. And then they have, especially with natives on the other side, they racially blackmail you with this implied threat, that they'll get government intervention, they'll pass a law, they'll start a lawsuit. They immediately start threatening legal action or talking about it if you don't go along with their narrative. And that's what it is, pushing a false narrative, because there's nothing, the only good thing about the Freiberg research is that she suggests as one of her solutions is eradicate Native imagery, which I've never seen a problem where eradication is the answer except pests, and I don't consider myself a pest. But her other solution is more Native imagery. And I think that's the solution here, to empower yourselves, to bring more Native imagery, to bring the stories in, to bring the blended culture in. Because this is a blended culture between Native and white culture. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's what we have in Illinois, and that's what they're trying to make us ashamed of. They're literally trying to call us Nazis because we want Native American imagery. Because Native American imagery has power, it has honor, it has dignity. You don't pick Native imagery to make fun of it for 90 years. Does anybody actually think that it was picked to be made fun of for a century? That doesn't even make logical sense. It is the progressive that this is a racist narrative that has been pushed and it's been false. And who benefits from changing the name? That's something you have to answer as a community, because for each community it's different. Sometimes it's the uniforms that they're going to bring in. Sometimes it's Nike. At the U of I, it's millions of dollars. It's millions, and they don't like it when people talk. We get media blackouts like you wouldn't believe. They would hate that I'm sitting here now because I work for them. They cut my hours. They've cut my hours. You know, they've tried to starve me out. They've levied, you know, complaints against me through work, you know. And I've had people email me in private through the U of I saying, I'm too scared to give you my name, but this is what's going on. Like I could help. Like, I want to help, but this is a huge fight. And I have to say, you're not alone. But whatever decision you make, opposition or not, realize that you have the burden of responsibility for the next 7 generations forward. Let me repeat that again, because that is important. You have the burden of the responsibility for whatever decision you make as a community to go forward 7 generations. That is your charge as parents, to take care of the generations after you, to build something sustainable that they can be proud of. That's what happened when the school was named. But here we are, what, 5 generations would that be later, arguing it? What's sustainable? What can you have pride in? What can you come back and stand, that was me. That's me, and that's what I'm proud to be. What you need to do is use critical thinking, not emotional thinking, because emotions are going to be on both sides, and you can't help that. Don't tear at each other personally, please. I've seen that in too many communities. And your children are watching you, and they're watching how you treat each other. I can't stress that enough. You realize you only have to be 13 to be on Facebook? So whatever you call each other online, whatever you accuse each other of online, your children see it. And that's how they think people should be treated. Because you can sit them down every night and tell them how people can be treated, but they're going to look at your actions and how you talk about people around the dinner table. You are the ones in charge of making this change. You are the empowered ones. All I ask is that you think about the next 7 generations and make the right decision.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. So, half Navajo, half Sioux. My mom, she's a Assiniboine Indian coming from Fort Peck. My dad is a Navajo. My clan-wise over there is I'm a Bitterwater, which is in Navajo means Torichitni. So I'm born to the Navajos. I grew up as a Navajo. Never met my mom for a while until I was 13 years old. What a coincidence, running into her at Walmart in Salt Lake and just recognized her picture. And I said, that looks like my mom. So I got to meet my mom. To this day, we keep in contact with each other. Now I'm trying to learn that side of the family, my tradition, my culture on that side. I don't know the language very well. I'm going to learn soon. For my Navajo side, this is my wife right here. Her name is Crystal. She'll tell more of herself on that side. But I grew up with my grandma. So my dad took me away from my mom, put me with my grandma. My grandma raised me. So I grew up traditional, learning my ways. I was a sheep herder when I was 8, 9 years old. So those are our ways. Our ways in Navajo is, raising goats, sheep. We're farmers. We're not fighters, we're farmers. So back in the days, you would realize our tradition and our ways. I'm kind of nervous right now. It's my first time really talking to people like this, so. I joined NAGA once they found out about me and my club. I have a club in New Mexico in Farmington, the 505 Redskin Club. We started back in 2012. Is when we started our club. It was just a group of 8. It was a group of 8 people But slowly, people had their own lives, so they branched off of us, became our members instead of founders of the club. Right now, we have me and my wife and 3 others who are founders, and then we have representatives in Albuquerque and El Paso, Texas. Our club continued to grow big. We have almost 445, we're getting up there to 500. Most of them consist of Native Americans. Now, when we started this club, we didn't just start it because we were just a football team, just to start something like the Dallas Cowboys or whatever, because that's what they have over there. They have the Dallas Cowboys, the Steelers club. They're based on football. We started our club based on when they were trying to attack the Redskins. And we went and tried to find out what the word Redskin meant to us. We found it, but I found it just before, the dictionary, Webster changed that name. They were paid to change that name. So before it was called North American Indians. So if you really look at it back in the days, that's what they looked at us as, North American Indians. They didn't change it. They changed it later on when someone paid them to change it and said it meant racist, it meant derogatory word about us. It didn't mean that. And like these guys all said, they did their research. I knew some of it, but some chiefs did go to the president and did talk about us and called us red men, Redskins. You guys hear about it from Oklahoma, what the state means. There's a tribe there, but what does that state mean? It's a red state, So I come from also on the reservation, so I'm like on the outer side of Navajo reservation. So I grew up in Farmington, New Mexico, in Shiprocks right there. So we're right on the side of the reservation. So I grew up in both ways, as in culture-wise, but I grew up with white people, and I graduated in Farmington. But I did go to school 1 year in Red Mesa Redskins. So I look at all of that, and I wonder, Navajo Nation has Tuba City Warriors, Red Mesa Redskins. They have Window Rock Scouts. They have Shiprock Chieftains. They have a place called Pueblo Pintado, but they call it Tsiikai Warriors. Then you got elementary schools there. They're called Warriors. They're called Braves. So I ask my question is, no one's attacking it. Yes, no one's attacking it because we're on the reservation. But to my point is, I walk up to a school, I grew up in those areas, and then I go to a school like this. When I came in here, the first thing I went to is something that I always do and love doing, is playing basketball. And I play in tournaments. I go to Fort Hall over here and play in tournaments. I see their banners up there. They're coming from different nations that have word Redskin on it. My dad came out here 3 months ago, and his team name was called the Redskins. I come into this gym, I look at that logo and everything. My chest is high. I look at it. I don't know if any Native Americans go to school here, but that's not my concern. My concern is you guys like to really represent us. Makes me feel proud that you guys can have that logo and know what that meaning is. You guys probably feel it as saying that's honor, that's brave. So that's how I feel about it. It makes me feel knowing that you guys recognize us. Now, I'm not really that educated as much as people could probably, I went to high school, yes, I finished high school, but I went straight out to work. I joined the union, and I traveled all over the country being a union worker. Never have I heard anybody talk about me, because I introduced myself. I'm a Native American, but never have I heard anybody say anything, call me a Redskin, or meaning anything. It was always nice. Oh, I can't believe why white people did this to you guys. This country belonged to you guys first. So I get a lot of good comments about it. I never got anything derogatory, nothing at all. And I'm just a one person compared to, maybe 6, 7, 8 people that are probably bigger than me wherever I go. You know, I mean, they could, if they wanted to say something and beat me up, but they never did. I didn't really come planned out here to really talk like this. But my wife can introduce herself. She's, you know, a pretty nice lady. I like her ways. Like my grandma says, find a woman that can make fry bread for you, and I found her. So I'll give it to her and let her talk, and if I come up with something that she's talking about, I'll join in with her.
Hi everyone. Crystal So Yanishia, Tohana Nishlan, Doashin Bashishchi, Torichini Dashache, Do Hanagahni Dashanala. Hello, I'm Crystal So. I am of the Near the Water clan, born for the Salt People clan. I'm here to support my husband with the 505 Residence Fan Club. We traveled up here from the Southwest. I'm here today to say that, you know, as a mom, as parents, most of us here are children's first teachers. You know, it's up to us to show where we come from, our traditions. And right now, our kids are at my mom's house on the reservation, learning their traditions. And we have to pass it on. So coming to this community, which thank you all for welcoming us. It's beautiful here. We love the mountains and we miss it because we moved to Texas. So we feel at home. But coming here and seeing this logo, you know, it makes us feel proud that we're not forgotten and we're here to help fight. But I want to show and teach my kids that, you know, they shouldn't be afraid for who they are, that they're Native Americans, and they should go out into the world and, you know, wear their turquoise, wear their Native regalia. But I want them to be proud because of who they are. I don't want them to be scared. A little of my background is I'm Navajo, full-blooded Navajo, and I'm come from Rough Rock, Arizona. So, like I said, my girls are there now and they're learning. I want to continue for them to learn who they are and where they come from. We travel on vacations, and it's sad to see that when we go somewhere, that people ask, who are you, where are you from? You know, as travelers, and they say, oh, Native Americans still exist. And that breaks my heart because we're being forgotten and written out of textbooks, and I don't think that's right. So I just want to say thank you for having your logo, your Native American imagery. And I love going around town and like Breland was saying, the buffalo. And it's an honor. So I pray to the creators that this fight comes to an end and that you keep your logo and your imagery for the next generations. Thank you.
I wanted to say something else. Crystal brought up a really good point about our children. I mean, we're parents, and you know, everybody, you know, we're Americans, first and foremost, and you know, we put our pants on the same way everybody else does, and everything. So one thing that is important, we want our children to embrace our heritage and culture for sure, but we also want them to know that you all embrace our heritage and culture, and you all respect our children, because that's what the problem is. A lot of these children are taught that white people hate them. They're taught that you want to make fun of them. They're taught that. And it's important to me to let my son know, and I'm sure Crystal and Jonathan are in Breland and in Eunice here, it's all important for us to let them know that you all exist. I'll tell you a little story about, and I promise I won't be too long-winded, because she always elbows me. My family, Oh, okay, just a second. But my family comes from the Southwest. They're Apache, and they made it their way into the Appalachian Mountains. They were persecuted and run away from their land. The intent was to sever their connection from their ancestral land and to break their spirit. My great-grandmother, I grew up with her, and it didn't really become evident until after I got older and, appreciated things a little bit more, that it was important for her to let me know the struggles that they endured and let me know about their culture, but not to hate white people. She also told us the stories about how white people sheltered them in their communities, and other natives like the Shawnee brought the Apaches and a lot of the other natives that were escaping persecution in the Appalachians and brought them in and sheltered them and helped them assimilate into the culture and things in the area. This is important because, I was taught both sides. I was taught that we were persecuted, but I was also taught that we were helped by white people. And I think it's important to show that, because history is history. We all know that we can't change it. We all know the bad things that happen. But we can't focus on those bad things all the time. We have to focus on the good things. And I see here that you all are preserving our history and culture, because it's not just because of us, it's because you're tying with that. And it's important for us to let our children know that and let them know that you all exist. I'm friends with many people from all the communities that we've visited, from the Lancaster Redskins, the Conrad Redskins, and my son. Yeah, they know my son just as well, because he's world famous now because he's on Facebook. And they do listen and they do read things. And just to Breland's point, they do listen and they do read things. And I hope I'm setting the best example, because I go to these communities, and he's at home and he's going through some things. We just recently lost my mom a few months ago, and he's going through some separation anxiety and things like that. But he also knows that it's important what I'm doing out here, and he understands that, and he understands that the communities that I've visited so far and everything, and he knows that they are trying to preserve his heritage and culture as well, for his benefit too. And I think that's an important thing to note here. Thank you very much for, again, I can't say enough, for having us all, and I'm going to pass this on to Eunice.
Okay, so we all told you of our feelings, our stories. My husband is here. My husband and I have been married. It'll be July 12th. We'll be married for 51 years. I'm full-blood Dakota Sioux, and he's Norwegian, full-blood Norwegian. We have 2 children that he calls them Sioux-egians. And they're proud of that. They both are. We talked about our children. Our son played hockey, and his hope and dream was to play for the Fighting Sioux. He didn't do it. He got married and had kids. And his son played hockey for 12 years at our local school. And he had dreams of playing for the Fighting Sioux. He loved it. He loved hockey. He loved the smell of the ice. He was quick. He was small, but he was really fast. And he was accepted into a skating program this summer before he was going to go into college to learn to be a professional skater. But sadly, he got killed in a car accident when he was 19 years old. So, but just I tell you that because if it wasn't for the Fighting Sioux name and for them in hockey, I don't think they would have graduated from high school. They were so proud of their heritage, and to be known that this huge university used the Fighting Sioux name for 80 years. So, we all talk about our kids, and I and my husband, we lost our grandson. It was about a year after that. One of our granddaughters gave the gift of a great-granddaughter, and we just love her to pieces. And we bought her a T-shirt with the Redskin logo on it. And we don't try and tell our kids to like or not to like. We give them the choice of doing what they want to do, and she loves that. She's only 6 years old. She wants to wear it all the time. Her mom has to fight with her to take it off. But anyway, I don't know if anybody else has anything else in the, yeah, you guys are all finished. But anyway, if anyone has any questions, please, we welcome that. We'll try to answer the best that we can.
I just want to state your comment, we are now in 7 generations of this community. My grandchildren make 7 generations of the fact of people since they settled here.
So it's been 7 generations since the settling, yeah. And that's really what you have to think for anything. And that's our 7th generation law. You know, whatever we decide and put forward needs to be maintained and good for 7 generations in the future. So that's not a situation where you can just make a hasty decision in a month with 5 people. You know, and that's what they do in communities, and it breaks communities. In fact, it broke the U of I so hard that, and I don't know how many people were here last night when I was talking about the U of I, but they physically attacked us at homecoming in 2017. They physically attacked Native Americans. They used bullhorns to yell in our faces. We had it on video, but you know, the cops were like, "Oh, we can't really see their face, and you can't really tell the bullhorn was on," even though my friend couldn't hear for 2 days out of his ear. His cell phone was smashed. They knocked his mother down to the ground. They were yelling, "Chief is racist," over the heads of children. Children were crying in the streets. They assaulted a police officer on the hood of the chancellor's car, and that picture ran in the newspaper. No charges were ever filed. Chancellor never apologized. Chancellor never addressed it. That's a media blackout. That's a real problem when the PC has gone so far that a cop, and I was in this parade, a cop turned to me after he heard something from his radio and said, "We can't protect you from this point forward," because they were called off. They were called off for the protesters to have their way with us. This gets serious fast. So the decision you make needs to be solid, and you all need to be behind it. Did you have a question?
Same way, several generations in the valley, back the farm that we farmed is one that they used to have a rendezvous on. And this was a few years old, with the Indians and the white men together at rendezvous. And so, yeah, the Indian heritage is great for us. We love it. And high school, you know, we were the fighting Redskins, and we could go to school down south, and we could whip their butts because we were tough. But anyway, the question is, how can we get good media representation? Because the only thing we ever hear is how we need to change the name because it's offensive.
That's an excellent question. We've been wrestling with that in Illinois for a long time, and what we've decided to do is just social media blitz. You know, because all these avenues are available to us. So if channel whatever 1, 2, or 3 doesn't want to talk to you, then you find the group on Facebook with the highest amount of members, and you start posting there. You know, as long as it's truthful and it's factual, post it. Don't post like false narratives or emotions. But if you post historical facts, you post it's true and it's factual, you can't argue it. Sorry, did you have something to add?
Okay, I'll get with you in just a moment. I want to give you another answer, actually a continuation, because your history here is so rich, and you think back 7 generations. Imagine what their intention was when they put this logo here. You have to honor their intention. You can't take away that. You have to solidify that. They saw forward that this relationship between Native Americans and non-Native Americans needed to be solidified in some way and remembered, and they chose to put it on the school. So that story needs to be told. How do you get this out to the media? We have a media representative in the back there. You have to tell your story. You have to be that's your truth, that's your story. Native Americans, we're storytellers. We tell our story. I tell you my story, she tells you hers. But your story is being lost. And it's a very important story. Your story is as valid as ours as Native Americans.
It's local history and blended culture.
No, it's basically, you're local.
Yeah, you're local, and the blended community, the blended culture has value. I want to get her back there before. Yes, ma'am.
Your story is our story. My name is Randy Teton. This is Larry Teton. We're the original families from this land. So the stories of the Redskins, that's our people right here. We have two elders right here that speak our language. And we're not here to start anything. We're here to let you guys know that we have an issue with this. I brought my two sons that have braided hair. My oldest son wants to cut his hair off because he gets bullied and he gets made fun of. Because he is called a redskin at school. So, I have a lot of issues with this. I'm also a former Mishishone Bannock. I'm a former tribal ambassador where I would go to other reservations and travel to represent my people. But I am a Teton, and I go back 7, 10, 20 generations of this whole land right here. And so I do welcome you, all 5 of you. And I'm hearing you
Thank you for this opportunity, everyone. My name is Lad Edmo. I'm Vice Chair for the Shoshone-Bannock Tribes. I do want to share, we have prepared a position letter for the school board, and we want to also, we're going to share it with the Idaho Education Board and the Idaho Indian of Education Board. I do have some of the answers that we have addressed that some of you had asked, so bear with me a sec. So we have a position letter prepared for Monty Wollensteinheim. Hope I pronounced that right. Yeah. Wollston Hume, thank you very much. Sorry I slaughtered that name, but it's a tough one. And then we understand that there's school board trustees for the District 401, Mary Mello, and then there's Chris Isaacson, Ben Kersley, thank you, Kersley, thank you, Jake Coons, and Nana Paul, Pugh, thank you. So our position letter is that the Fort Hall Business Council is the governing body of the Shoshone-Bannock Tribes, and we affirm that our stringent opposition to the name Redskin. The reason why is I wanted to answer that question that we talked about Redskin is our traditional name of ourselves is the Niwa, or the Noah, which means Indian people. We do not have a name for Redskin in the Shoshone-Bannock language, contrary to the argument offered by the Redskin supporters, and the name Redskin refers to scalps or proof of bounties for dead Indians. The origins of the names Redskins refers to the name that white American colonists made up who sought to create their own social and racial categories. This name was to clearly delineate Indian people as a separate race of people who had no civil rights under the U.S. Constitution or Bill of Rights from civilized American gentlemen within Idaho. It is documented in the newspaper articles that announced the U.S. Army was paying Indian bounties of $50 for Indian bucks and $25 for Indian women and children. This is the Idaho and tribal history that is missing from public school history. You guys talked about how do we educate everybody. I think our answer to that is that the tribes know that the local, regional, and state history requirements fails to offer tribal history to the school districts. As part of our curriculum, the tribes request that school districts require a mandatory class for our high school students and diversity training for high school teachers, administrators, and staff in Idaho tribal government history to better understand the people who are attempting to honor and respect. So basically, those are the things that I saw that aroused here. I grew up here, and I wanted to welcome you all to our ancestral homelands of the Shoshone-Bannocks. The colonization process has taken its toll on all of our nations, but yet we're still here, and we're going to continue to be here. And we are a sovereign nation, and we do have our Constitution and bylaws that we follow. And with this, we make our own ordinances, our own policies, and we also incorporate some of the state and the federal. And we constantly fight with our federal agencies to adhere to their trust responsibilities, because it's a process that when there's a changing of the guard or a new person, they have to be retrained, so to speak, and Myself, I'm new to this. I'm a carpenter by trade. I've been a carpenter for over 35 years. And I understand that the construction up here is phenomenal because you get to build cabins, and as a tradesman, that's kind of like a dream. But aside from that, I became a politician for our tribal government, and I'm going to continue that journey. And I just got recently back on council, so my journey continues, and I will try to advocate. And I'm not here to offend as our NAGA staff representatives have indicated. I think we all have common agreements, and we may agree to disagree, as the gentleman had stated before, but that's just the way it is, and we're in today's society, and we need to and should continue to move forward and work together and make our communities what we want them to be, and what we want is success. Me personally, taking the name Redskin is, when I was a youth, I played sports and I played football, and one of my dreams never came true, but a dream, just as all children should have, and the pursuit of happiness is, I would have wished to have the opportunity to play professional sports for the Washington Redskins. It would have been the highlight of my career. But unfortunately, my career took me to junior college, and then it kind of fizzled out because the competition level at that level is phenomenal. But that's aside the point. But I don't want to take offense to it. My son, he's 13 years old, and he wears a braid, and he's been bullied. But he's a big kid. He'll make it, and just like these other kids, they'll make it. But I don't think they should be threatened to the point where they feel they have to change the way they look. But sometimes as parents, we feel bad for our family members, and we always support our family members, just as you guys support what you guys have here. All we ask is that you don't, and other communities, like the Salmon Savages, and I just want to name off a few. The Salmon River Savages from Riggins, and the Teton, you guys are the Teton Redskins from Driggs. We got the Pocatello Indians right there in our hometown there. Then there's the Shoshone Indians from Shoshone, Idaho, and Preston Indians from Preston, and Buell Indians from Buell, and the Boise Braves from Boise. All we really want to have is the respect of the war bonnet or any of our traditional regalia that you don't, or even our dances or our customs that you don't deframe it or make it a mockery, or even dressing up like it's Halloween. I mean, that's, to most of us natives, not everybody, but most, it's insulting. And I know I could come up here and be as ignorant as any other person that would be abrasive towards this situation, and this is very serious, because we could actually say, because you're this kind of person, I'm going to say something that's going to make you feel insulted, and I'm not going to do that because I'm not that type of person. But I believe we can continue our process of success as a community in eastern Idaho. I was going to say southeast Idaho, but I don't think this is very far south. But eastern Idaho, I'm proud to be a resident. I'm proud to be a Native American, and just as you individuals here, residents, are proud to be part of your community. If it's the high school, if it's Driggs, I could understand that. And coming into town, and I've driven through town before, but I was always treated well, and we had a great dinner over at the little pizzeria place, and they support you because they had to sign on there, but we didn't take offense to that. I didn't. So we come with, I don't don't want to say we come in peace, but we come with the attitude that we want to stay as U.S. citizens, and we all are on the same team. We all fight for our freedom, and we all respect our country, and we all have our own beliefs, and that's why we're in the United States, because we have the freedom of religion and freedom of speech and all of those things. So we love this country, and we want to continue that. Whether you guys change the name or not, that's up to you guys. But the position letter will be as it is, and don't take offense. It's just like anything else. We have to be resilient, and sometimes we let those things slide off our back. Thank you very much. Is that for me?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully I speak for everyone here. I just want to say that, we do respect you. We want to understand you. We want to know more about your culture. We want to have classes here. We want to learn about this, and we want to fight with you. We want to fight against those bullies.
That's what.
We love our heritage. There's a rich heritage here with a big Native American heritage here, and we have roots here, and we want to embrace that. We want to stand up for you. We want to fight.
That's what Americans do, and I'm sure that's what when the first colonists landed in Plymouth Rock, that guess what, them Indians probably welcomed them and took care of them and helped them and showed them how to survive in this new world. And that's kind of that scenario, and I agree, and we welcome that. With that, I would suggest that maybe you contact our tribes and get some of the information that may be helpful, and we can share and we can grow together. We can understand how this land was before. I know when the white settlers came, excuse me, I didn't want to say white. When the settlers came, they wanted to use the resources, and they wanted to take over on all of the game, and with that kind of was detrimental to our tribe, because we were pushed out, and then we were kind of starved, because we are a subsistence tribe. We live off of the game, we live off the land. But yet, as the gentleman there, the elderly gentleman said, that he's a farmer. That was the whole intent of using this land for the production of farms and crops and animals, and we can understand that. That's fine. Yes.
I've spoken before, but I want you to know that we identify in the forum with you, because I'm fifth generation. I knew my great-grandfather really well. He told of when he came here as a young boy, when the Fort Hall Indians come in here, when they would clear the sagebrush for farmers, make land room for land, you had a treaty right to come in here and steal a pumpkin ground.
Yep, that's true.
They were coming in and putting up their teepees and spending some time, and they would gather up all this sagebrush, and they would burn it and sing and dance, and he was fascinated by this. He deeply respected you people. And he told me this as a boy until he lived up to when I was 27 years old. And he told me these stories that fascinated me too. I was taught to respect this. I did not know Redskin was a derogatory term until people that moved in here brought their prejudice with them. I was taught it was identity of the land and the school that we represented. And I love that. side on the Redskins logo. He didn't do it out of derogatory, he did it out of love for the people that he knew. Expect us to consider it a derogatory term. I don't understand it, I don't feel it, it's not in me, because I know what my grandfather taught me, and it's the same thing I teach my grandchildren.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm sure some of them relationships back in them days were, as you stated, and I believe that wholeheartedly. The gentleman there, and then one of our.
Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying this because this is part of what we witnessed with your stories and all the stories that we've heard. First, I wanted to bring something back to what the young lady back there said. I just want to say, if we did not, we were invited here by the people of the town. It was never our intention to offend you or anything like that. We welcome a chance to sit down and talk and understand each other and things like that. This is what we were all about. Again, like I mentioned before, the idea that I was raised on and what I've learned to be ancient Native American law, the great laws of peace, was to hear all sides of the story and try to understand and listen and be heard is what I was always taught. I really thank you for coming up here and respectfully airing your grievance and everything like that. And I understand, and like I said, I hold no ill feelings towards you or anything other than that you're not a Redskins alumni football player, because I certainly would have rooted for you as a kid.
I'm a Haskell alumni, so that's part of it. Okay. I know you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah, and our first Native American coach was Hall of Fame, Haskell Hall of Fame, Lone Star Driggs. So I think this is important, and this is one of the things that NAGA does. We don't, we're, like I said, we're not here to point fingers and accuse and things like that. We have experiences and stuff like that. And let me be clear, there are people on the other side. There's always extremists, but there's always that, respectful people and things like that. As is on our side too. We have extremists on our side too. But we should not, as people, we should not allow the extremists to dictate what's going on. We should not allow them to get all the airtime. What we're seeing here is a great opportunity for this community to reconnect with the original people of this land and respectfully come together. And one of the things that we try to facilitate with these schools, I understand, with these schools and these communities, is try to bring relevant Native American culture to the schools. I kid you not, we agree eye to eye on many, many, many things, other than the offensiveness of the word redskin. But in terms of getting education back in the schools and teaching the history and teaching what you talked about with your great-grandfather and what you talked about with your great-grandfather and what you talked about there, and to get the kids, look at these young kids here, they want to hear this. They want to see this. And I think it's a missed opportunity, and this is one of the reasons why it doesn't have to be missed, but if we miss it, it would be a missed opportunity to facilitate a cultural celebration, a cultural melding here, and to celebrate the mixed culture, as you say, the blended culture. And so we need to see. We can't discuss everything right now, and I know it's getting late and everything like that. But I say I welcome the chance for you to hear us out and for us to hear you all out as well. And we want to help. Not just you all are part of this community as well. This is not just a single facet community. We're here for the community, and we're here. Like I said, it's unfortunate that there's always going to be someone who's happy that a decision was made if they keep the Redskins, or someone who's going to be sad if they lose the Redskins or something like that. That's inevitable in any debate. But it doesn't have to go as a missed opportunity. We can also use this as an educational opportunity, and that's what NAGA is all about, is an educational opportunity. And I'm sure what I've heard from you, I'm sure you and your family are in agreement with that.
If I can say something, I won't take very long. I was asked by a news reporter tonight. He said, Eunice, if you could tell the community something that would kind of help maybe bridge the gap. And I told him, I said, what I would like to see on my reservation, we have people from our town, our local town where I live at, they always want to learn about our culture. So our reservation, our people go in, they even have a Native American Day, they go in and put on a dance. The elders talk about what we used to be like. And that's what I told the reporter. I said, I would love to see the tribes around here work with the community. I asked Tracy, I said, Tracy, you need to reach out to the tribal members. Have them come in here, ask them to come in, whatever they want to show you, do that, you know. And that's, like I said, NAGA, we're not here to eradicate anything. We want to educate. That's what my grandmother was told us. She said, you have to educate everybody both ways. And you have to do it with a good heart. And I'm really happy that you spoke up about your sons, because the community didn't know that. Now they know that. You guys need to keep
the dialogue open.
Keep the communication going. That's the only way you fix anything. So I really thank you for coming up here.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
I see where they're flickering the lights and they're kind of egging us to get out here. We only had till 9. I see there's 2 questions out here. The young lady from the tribe there. We're kind of out of time, but please come on up. We're not allowed to take the mics off the stage. I'm sorry.
We pay taxes. We pay for the lights. Leave them on. We want to find out stuff. So leave them on.
So the other point I want to make here is we are the local tribe. We are here. We're here to help you understand our rationale for why we oppose this. These folks here, they come across the United States. They are other tribes. They have totally different experiences that they shared with you tonight. Come talk to us. Come talk to the tribes here, the Shoshone-Bannock tribe. Go talk to the Eastern Shoshone tribe. They also come from this area. So I encourage you to understand the actual tribal history. These folks here, all of their advice that they give you, other than education, all the other things are specific to their reservation. Very different history, very different states, very different people, very different experiences.
Many different tribes came here, Flatheads came here, Rollocks came here, Red Spears came here.
So,
Not just Shoshone, not just Spanish.
I do want to emphasize, we are the resident people. Those were visitors. We are the ones who came here and lived here. Again, this is why I emphasize, it's good to have this opportunity to come and listen to our perspective. And I think that perhaps you can have a little more open perspective for how we interpret our history.
But can you also share your great love of the land and your great traditions?
Okay, so
And know that it is an honor. Like our sixth great-grandfathers, when they came here, they're honoring the Redskin name. We would never choose a mascot that we didn't honor and respect. And they may have so help us understand.
no permission was given. Nobody was asked from the tribes. So it's
Well,
not an
I can
invitation.
also say that no one here in this room lived back then, so we don't know. So, but,
Excuse me, can I respond to some of these questions?
well, yeah, well, we're
Okay, one at a time. Yes.
And I think a lot of settlers and efforts that came here fought alongside a lot of those tribes. And when they decided to name it, they wanted to name it something that would show bravery and pride and honor. An understanding and misunderstanding of it. That is why, to honor it. That is the only reason. And that's always
So again,
Miss Toll, can I say something real quick? Okay, so real quick, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dorina Toole. I'm her daughter. I served in the United States Navy. I was a Seabee, and I deployed. I've been many different places, and all the things that they said that didn't bother them, I did happen. So everything that you guys said about how the Redskins is an honoring thing, no, it's not. When I go to Afghanistan, when I went to Japan, people there, not of that country, of our country, ask me random questions. Oh, are you Mexican? Oh, you're Native. You're Indian. Oh, you're Redskin. You're this. You're savage. Blah, blah, blah. They would ask me questions like, do you still live in a teepee? Do you still do all this? Because nobody's educated, none of this. Everyone is closed-minded like some of the individuals here. So you feel like what you're honoring is the people? Yet you're not speaking to the people. You're allowing a few individuals here to come and tell you that it's okay because, as my understanding, they said, quoted, we speak for the natives. No, they don't.
But you're going to make the sense of those people that you have visited. We have not done that to you.
No, I know, and I'm not saying you have, ma'am. I'm not saying that at all. But you have to understand that the word Redskin, understand why it affects us, why it bothers us, why I get a little twinge every time someone says, oh, we're honoring the Redskins. We're honoring the Native people by calling them Redskins. No, you're not. But there are schools that have. You have to understand. Let's just stop it all. And you know what? This school may be great at not doing it, but your neighboring schools are not. So how do we know that?
That's what we have already done to you. We've already stolen your heritage.
So why honor it then? Why not just leave it alone and let us honor our people the way we need to honor? We've been where we are. We haven't disappeared. We are still here. But you're refusing to hear what I'm saying. I'm showing you what has happened in my time. Not specifically here in Idaho, but I'm telling you been called what? That's an honor. How dare you? First off, I lived in California. It is an honor to be called an Idaho potato.
Or we could attempt to fix it so it doesn't continue to be something more. Let's fix it so that the people who are that derogatory term, end it so that we are natives.
So here's a question.
Yes. Is this for me?
For anyone.
Oh. You guys can come up here too.
Mostly for you guys. If the name were to change, what would be a name appropriate besides Redskins?
But see, that's the thing. Have you ever taken a poll? Because it's the same thing as the Redskins or anything. Why is it up to us? Why not choose something completely different that is specific? There's buffaloes. Everyone keeps talking about the buffaloes and how that's apparently native. That's an animal. Choose a buffalo.
But what if we wanted to keep that heritage for the Indians? Is there a name that we could have that would represent?
Maybe what you should do is talk to the neighboring tribes like they suggested multiple times. Maybe, that your committee, your school board, or even your council for your town can do that. And if it doesn't work, then note it and try again. She said specifically in the past that they are still trying for their team name to come back. Try again. That's what I've always been taught. Just because they say no, try again. Find a different name. Do something else. But for you to sit here and be closed-minded and be like, no, we need to be called the Redskins because that's our honor for so many years. That's silly.
Hold on. May I ask you a question, please? Okay. Hold on. I wanted to ask you. I'm sorry. What's your name again? Dorina. I want to ask you a question. So you mentioned that the other schools around the area may use the term Redskin derogatorily, but you don't know anything specific that here.
We do? Not here. No, I don't know.
That the kids here have always, have. Well, we'll just say that the kids here have always been respectful of that name.
So we do have an example.
But I was asking a question. I would like to.
Okay, I'm going to help her with the question, with the answer.
But you haven't. Okay, you can help, but I haven't even asked the question yet.
To help you understand.
I couldn't answer the question. I'm sorry. I didn't finish my question. I want to ask the question before. Okay. So, how is it right to punish the respectful people on behalf of the people who have been disrespectful?
Okay, Rena, Geshes. So we as a tribe, we hear incidences of racial events to our children at high school events. It doesn't necessarily occur at the original home gym, but just this year, we have an incident where the kids were playing at a different school and they were encountering racial taunts. So it doesn't always occur in your home location, but it does occur when you play in other places because you have no control over what that community says. So it is of a concern to our membership. It happens. We just received a report of a young man who was threatened, who had a knife pulled on him because he had long hair and they were taunting him for having long hair. So these are real events that occur to our membership. And we have to consider those types of situations when we deal with these types of names, because it's one, revolving in high schools, and two, it's directly because of the names.
Okay, a question.
Is changing our name from the Redskins, is that going to stop racism? Is that going to stop that incident that happened here?
I think it would help to understand it is not acceptable to conduct these types of activities. So I think there's a better understanding of these are not acceptable to treat other people badly like this. Because one, they are different. Two, they don't look like, quote, non-Indian boys. So, but I think that would be one way for your community to help to understand there are differing opinions and we do experience the outcomes of these types of names. And one way you can do it is to change your name to a less offensive. Whatever it is, it's up to you as a community. What name do you want that best represents you as your community?
Okay, so what she said, to give you another example, because you don't really seem to be understanding, I lived in California for 5 years, and my son was born. Do you want me to wait? Okay, so as an example to what her says on perceptions and look, I lived in California, my son was born in California, and he has long hair. And in California, there's not a lot of natives. You guys, in Idaho, there's a lot of natives here. In California, there's none. So, for example, he would get taunted constantly and jumped at his school, at his CDC, because he was native, because he was different. And no, let me rephrase. So people in the military would say things like, "Oh, should I get him a redskin shirt? Do you want that for Christmas?" And my son was like 2 years old at the time, and to me, because they were my coworkers, I was in the military, I was respectful. Because, what is it to fight with the people that are supposed to be on my left and right fighting? But you guys need to know that that's out there. And things like this name, it does hurt. What was I going to do, fight this individual because he said that to my son about my color or his long hair or his color? That's silly. I said nothing. I was calm and respectful. But please understand, that name actually does hurt people. When I was school, so why choose a name that is possibly derogatory, can be used?
Because anything can be derogatory.
Well, why even get that close?
Okay, hold on. Let's settle this down for just a second, please. I just want to say something because it is getting late. I was also in the Navy for 11 years. I was stationed out in California as well. I was obviously, you look to be much younger than me though. So I was there years ago, back in the early 90s and everything. I served Operation Restore Hope, also Operation Southern Watch. And I've been all over the world. I've been to Japan, I've been to Abu Dhabi, I've been to Dubai, I've been to Somalia. And I've been to any number of ports that we pulled into, Perth and Hong Kong, Singapore, and all those places. And never in my time, and I'm not saying that don't get me wrong, I'm not calling her a liar or anything like that. This is her experience.
Oh, they're friends on Facebook with me. I can get them right now.
But in my experience, in my time, I never heard that. No one ever referred to me as a redskin in a derogatory way or anything like that. What I'm seeing here, and given that this young lady's had this experience, what we have done over the past 20 some odd years, and we've created a racial slur. And don't you think that's the problem? See, it wasn't affecting me because no one saw it that way. But then, a few years ago, then someone says, "Hey, this is a racial slur. This is how you can hurt Native Americans," and now they use it, right? And we allowed them to do that by
because it bothers me. As an individual, I have that right to say something bothers me.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't affect you. It affects me personally. Because I have been called it. You've been called it in a game, in a sport. I've been called it in a derogatory term to hurt me. In the Navy, the own military people. I can't hear you. You gotta come closer. Say again?
But how you approach it, I always took mine as strong.
Okay, my name is Elvia Towersap. I'm going to ask you a question. Or how many languages do you think that is? Okay, all I'm saying is, do you speak your Indian language in Shoshone, also in Bannock? The reason I'm talking about language, English. I have been in the school system all my life.
I worked in the school system in kindergarten, in elementary school. I had an experience with my tribal members going to school. The teachers would categorize, you Indian kids, come sit over here. And then the smart ones over there. And she lets me teach the smart ones over there. Never my own kid, my own tribe. So most of the teachers were overloaded. They had 30 students in their class. Okay, we had the non-speakers, the accelerated, the middle, and then the lower. And how in the world can a teacher teach that way in different categories? So most of our Indians were labeled as non-learners or cannot learn because they speak their native language. And so they're over here. Most of the time they're just over here. In the next class, the same way. And then when today, this is today's life. You are members of the state of Idaho, citizens. How many of you have heard of Indians graduating with PhD up there in the higher level? Are the Indians in legislatures? Are they senators? Are they doing something? No, you have never seen that. And that's because our Indian kids are still over here. They go to the next grade and the teacher will say, well, you're in the first grade next year. And next year, you're the first grader over there, you're in the second grade. They're not really learning. I also work in our own tribal school, Shoshone-Vanik Junior High and High School. You know, over there, they're teaching, they're graduating. That one year, they were graduating 12 students with a third grade education. I told the teachers, you know, I'm ashamed to work here at this school because what are the tribal members, the fathers and the mothers, what do you think of their kids? They're not even learning anything. They can't even write a decent sentence. They don't know how to spell. But yeah, we're pushing them out because they're seniors. So, with my experience, I'm 85 years old. Very few of our people are graduating. We have one person back there with a PhD. We have one person over here with 2 masters. That's very, very few. We have over 3,000 members. Are they educated? No, because we are labeled. Oh, those dumb Indians, they don't know. So